But let me ask you on another topic. There was a Washington Post story on May the 29th, 2009, where that starts out saying the White House scrambled yesterday to assuage worries from liberal groups about Judge Sonia Sotomayor's scant record on abortion rights. And White House goes on to say, White House press secretary said the president did not ask Sotomayor specifically about abortion rights during their interview. Is that correct?
Yes, it is absolutely correct. I was asked no question by anyone, including the president, about my views on any specific legal issue.
Do you know then on what basis, if that's the case, and I accept your statement, on what basis that the White House officials would subsequently send a message that abortion rights groups do not need to worry about how you might rule in a challenge to Roe versus Wade?
No, sir, because you just have to look at my record to know that in the cases that I addressed on all issues, I follow the law.
On what basis would George Pavia, who was apparently a senior partner in the law firm that hired you as a corporate litigator, on what basis would he say that he thinks support of abortion rights would be in line with your generally liberal instincts? He's quoted in this article saying, quote, I can guarantee she'll be for abortion rights, close quote. On what basis would Mr. Pavia say that, if you know?
I have no idea, since I know for a fact I never spoke to him about my views on abortion, frankly, on my views on any social issue. George was the head partner of my firm, but our contact was not on a daily basis. I have no idea why he's drawing that conclusion, because if he looked at my record, I have ruled according to the law in all cases addressed to the issue of the termination of abortion rights, of women's right to terminate their pregnancy, and I voted in cases in which I upheld the application of the Mexico City policy, which was a policy in which the government was not funding certain abortion related activities.
Do that. You've been asked a lot of questions about abortion, and you've said that Roe v. Wade is settled law. Where are we today? What is the settled law in America about abortion?
I can speak to what the court has said in its precedent. In Planned Parenthood versus Casey, the court reaffirmed the core holding of Roe versus Wade, that a woman has a constitutional right to terminate her pregnancy in certain circumstances. In Casey, the court announced that in reviewing state regulations that may apply to that right, that the court considers whether that regulation has an undue burden on the woman's constitutional right. That is my understanding of what the state of the law is.
Let me give you a couple of cases. Let's say I'm 38 weeks pregnant and we discover a small spina bifida sac on the lower sacrum, the lower part of the back on my baby, and I feel like I just can't handle a child with that. Would it be legal in this country to terminate that child's life?
I can't answer that question in the abstract, because I would have to look at what the state of the state's law was on that question and what the state said with respect to that issue. I can say that the question of the number of weeks that a woman is pregnant has been, that approach to looking at a woman's act was changed by Casey. The question is the state regulation regulating what a woman does an undue burden? And so I can't answer your hypothetical because I can't look at it as an abstract without knowing what state laws exist on this issue or not. And even if I knew that, I probably couldn't opine, because I'm sure that situation might well arise before the court.
Okay. Well, does technology, in terms of the advancement of technology, should it have any bearing whatsoever on the way we look at Roe v. Wade? For example, published reports most recently of a 21-week, that's 142 days, fetus alive and well now at 9 months of age with no apparent complications because the technology has advanced so far that we can now save children who are born prematurely at that level. Should that have any bearing as we look at the law?
The law has answered a different question. It's talked about the constitutional right of women in certain circumstances, and as I indicated, the issue becomes one of what's the state regulation in any particular
I understand,
circumstance.
but all I'm asking is, should it have any bearing?
I can't answer that in the abstract because the question, as it would come before me, wouldn't be in the way that you form it as a citizen. It would come to me as a judge in the context of some action that someone's taking, whether if it's the state, if it's a private citizen being controlled by the state challenging that action. Those issues are...
But viability is a portion of a lot of that. And a lot of the decisions have been made based on viability. If we now have viability at 21 weeks, why would that not be something that should be considered as we look at the status of what can and cannot happen in terms of this right to privacy that's been granted under Roe v. Wade and Casey?
All I can say to you is what the court's done. And the standard that the court has applied, what factors it may or may not look at within a particular factual situation, can't be predicted in a way to say, yes, absolutely, that's going to be considered. No, this won't be considered.
All I'm asking is whether it should. Should viability, should technology at any time be considered as we discuss these very delicate issues that have such an impact on so many people? And your answer is you can't answer it.
I can't, because that's not a question that the court reaches out to answer.
Well,
that's a question that gets created by a state regulation of some sort or an action by the state that may or may not, according to some claimant, place an undue burden on her. We don't make policy choices in the court. We look at the case before us with the interests that are argued by the parties, look at our precedent, and try to apply its principles to the arguments parties are raising.
I'm reminded of one of your quotes that says you do make policy, and I won't continue that.